It is finally time to finish my fish and forest quilt. If you've been here since the beginning of this quilt, it started out as some improv fish blocks, and then it has grown into a quilt with fish and trees. I'll get it down in a second to show you. But while I was working on this, I also had the idea for a third little improv booklet. As you might know, I already have Improv Houses and I already have Make It Wonky, and both of those are little instructional booklets that you can get in my shop still. You can get it either a physical copy or a digital copy to read on your screen. And so I wanted to round out that little collection with the third book because I've learned so much in the last year about improv quilting with curves and just sewing and quilting curves in general. It is not as scary as you think. So I put together this little booklet to show you how to sew wonky curves of all kinds and how to implement those ideas into your quilt designs. And so I'm proud to say you can go get that from my shop right now, both the digital copy or the hard copy to be mailed to you from me. If you're outside of the US, I only ship to the US right now. Sorry about that. And so you can get the digital copy instead. But today I'm going to finish my fish and forest, not today. Over the course of this video, I will be finishing my fish and forest quilt. I already have an idea for the quilting. I think I'm gonna do some simple free motion, so I will show you how to do that. And what I need to do now is make one more row of trees across the top and then make like a sky. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so here is what I have. I have like the sandy, wavy bricks at the bottom, and then several rows of fish, and then I made like the seashore and then a beach, and then I went into the forest by making blocks of trees. And so in order to make this more rectangular, like a bed size quilt, I think it'll be about twin size, probably a little bit bigger, I need to make one more row of trees, and then I'm going to use this same concept to make a sky. And so all of this is in the little improv curvy improv book. And so I'm definitely gonna put the link to the book in the very beginning part of the description. And now I'm going to get to work. Wait, I need to tell you, if you have missed any of these tutorials for this quilt, I have a playlist. I'll probably call it the Fish and Forest Quilt playlist. So I will put that together and all these tutorials will be in one place. You can also find the house quilt playlist, and I have an entire quilting playlist too. So everything that I am not showing you exactly how to do right here, I have shown in a video in the last several months. So if you want to learn to make the fish or the trees, just go back to those other videos or refer to the book. I thought I would just pop in and tell you how exactly, if you want to build a quilt like this yourself, but you might be thinking like, where the heck, like what's the starting point? So usually when I'm improving a quilt, I'm either building from the center outward, or in this case I'm building from the bottom up. You could build from the top down. I'm planning a different quilt now where I'll be building from the top left corner outward to the bottom right. And so if you think of it in terms of just building around or on top of or below one element, then that kind of makes it easier. So for this quilt, I started with just one row of fish, and when I had enough fish to put into a row, the width that I wanted, which ended up being 62 inches, which is a good like throw size quilt, then I was able to keep the height of my rows the same. I think I was building 6-inch or 5.5-inch tall fish blocks, and they could be any length. And then I have like filler blocks in there to make sure that it makes the 62-inch width for each row. And then I just built rows of fish on top of rows until I had enough. And then when I started to build the rows of trees, I decided a good height for the tree was 9 1/4. It's kind of a random number. And then just built the rows of the same height of trees. They could be any width that I wanted. And then again, I have filler blocks in there to make sure that I reach that 62 inches. And it's very important also to make sure that your row measures the right measurement instead of before you sew it on. Like instead of just starting at 1 inch, sewing it on, and then lopping off what's left over. You don't want to do that because your quilt could end up going like this. You want to measure the rows to the correct measurement before you sew it on, because the more seams you have in there, the more the row is going to stretch and things like that. So that will make sure that your quilt is square. By square, I mean the proper rectangular shape. Okay, let me show you what I mean a little bit better. Okay, so I started with, I think it was this row of fish, the very bottom one. And that one was 62 inches across. And you can see that my fish blocks measure the same height. They're just different widths. And so if one was too skinny, I could just put a little filler block on top of it. And then I could have filler blocks here. And I could have filler blocks like up here in the trees. I put one on the end so that I could get to that 62 inch point without any drama of trying to squeeze another tree in there. Here's some filler blocks. Or alternatively, if you don't want filler blocks, you can just make the end trees bigger so that you can trim them down to the proper width for your row once your row is already made. Okay, I'm gonna sew my last row of trees on, and then I'm going to make more of these wavy bricks for the sky. And I think that might do it. I can't decide yet if I'm gonna make one row or two. I'm gonna wait and see what the finished measurement is looking like after. But first, I need to clean up my desk. Before I move on to a new element, I like to clean up the mess from the previous one. Alrighty, it's been a few days. Cannot remember if I recorded this, what I'm about to say already. But I have finished all the rows of trees. I've sewn them on, and right now it is just about square. So it's only 4 inches taller than it is wide, and I would like it to be rectangular. I think earlier I said it was like throw size. It's definitely more like twin size, maybe even oversized twin, I don't know, because it's 62 wide. I think if I put 2 of these wavy bricks borders at the top for a sunset and sky, then it will be about 75 to 80. And then I might also, because I have 2 wavy brick rows here and I'm gonna have 2 at the top, I might add another one for the beach, only if I think it looks weird. I'd rather not, but if I think it looks unbalanced, then I will. So that is the last thing I have to do, and these wavy bricks go pretty quick. I have included these in a past video, and this is also one of the concepts in the Curvy Improv book. Super easy. Okay, my plan is to do sort of sunset-y colors for the bottom wave, and then lighter sky, and then medium sky, and then dark sky. Something like that. So hopefully the blue fabrics I have left hold out. Okay, I finished my 2 wavy brick rows, and this is the last seam, and then the quilt top is done. Whenever I'm sewing long strips onto the quilt, or 2 long strips together, I always fold to mark the center. And if your strip is extra long, you can fold again to mark the quarters. And so then you do the same thing on the quilt part, and then you'll have it perfectly even all the way across, so that you don't, if you start at one end and start pinning, then you might end up having to stretch the rest of the row to fit, or vice versa. So this ensures that everything is evenly spread across your seam. Here we go to finish the quilt top. I'm done. I need to press this seam, of course. But the top is done. I'm really gonna miss having this sitting here on my design wall though. It really adds some color to my sewing room. So the next step is to find something to back this with, and then I'm gonna make the quilt sandwich and I'm gonna quilt it. I am not a person who waits very long between finishing a top and quilting it. Once I get it to this phase, I really just wanna have a finished quilt. And so I'm not the girl who has 15 quilt flimsies, these are called, just in the queue to be quilted. I like to do it immediately. So I can't decide if I'm gonna kind of dig through what I have to see if I have something I can use for the back, but if not, I'm gonna go buy something and then quilt it. I have a good idea for quilting. Wait till you see. Okay, I found a backing fabric. I did go shopping for this. Sometimes I piece together backings, but I didn't really have anything that was gonna work without like practically making another quilt. So I decided on a solid color. I went to Hobby Lobby. This only cost me $15 for 4 yards because it was on sale, and it's a homespun cotton, so it's like a much softer than quilting cotton, but not quite like flannel. But it has like a little bit of a brush texture. It's gonna be super cozy. So I already have a full video on how I based my quilts, pin based them on the table, not on the floor. And so I will link to that, and I'm gonna go make my quilt sandwich. Okay, sorry about the light. I think you'll be able to see this anyway. Here's my plan for the quilting. Pretend this is my quilt. If you're not following Susie Quilts on Instagram and YouTube, she is a great quilter to follow. She makes really beautiful patterns, and also she's just really good at it. All of her things tend to come out very just nice looking, and like I am not, like, my quilting is never perfect, but she had this tutorial for free motion scallops on her YouTube channel, and what she did though is she folded up her quilt this way and rolled it so the entire bulk of the quilt is underneath the arm of her sewing machine, while she's free motion quilting scallops that look like this. Can you see that? There we go. Maybe if I block the sun with my body. Okay, that look like this, and then she unrolls the quilt as she moves this direction. But the quilt she was working on looked like more of a baby size quilt. Mine is much larger, and her machine, even though mine is pretty large under here, hers looked even bigger. So what I'm going to do is go this way, and like I always do is roll up both sides and roll up this side. And I'm going to make my scallops sideways like this. I'm going to start in the middle row. I'm going to go all the way down. And so the quilt is moving through my machine this way as I'm making scallops. I've done loops like this before, and it worked really well. So this is what I'm hoping will work for this. If you need a free motion quilting tutorial, I do have one of those, and I will link you to it, and I will link you to Susie Quilt's video about this also. And then the next row, I will either, let's see, if I finish this row, I'll see how it works if I just use the margins of the quilt to go up and move back this direction. So the quilt is moving towards me now. And this way I don't have to stop. Like if I were doing it this direction, I would have to stop and re-roll the quilt after every row and start again. And this will help me. I like to start in the middle and I like to go back and forth in different directions so that I don't have a lot of pulling of the quilt in just one direction. So hopefully this will work. I've never done this design before, but I think it's absolutely perfect for my fish quilt. So we're gonna see how it goes. I think I actually might move my entire sewing machine out to my dining table just so I have more of a flat surface. Starts to get pretty little in here when I'm quilting a large quilt. Okay, I'm more than halfway. I did this entire top half, which is more than half actually, in these scallopy mountains. And then halfway, and then I had to turn around and go the other way. So in retrospect, if I'd wanted to do these for the whole quilt, I definitely should have started at the bottom and gone up. Because then reversing direction and trying to go like this and have the bottoms of my scallops all even and meet here where they were supposed to. It was hard, I couldn't do it. I had to take some out. But that's okay because my other plan was to switch to more of like a bubble motif for the fish section. And so I did that instead, and it's a little bit more difficult, but I'm getting the hang of it and I really think it looks cool. So I sort of made that up on the fly and thankfully it is working out. Very excited to finish. It's taking kind of a long time. Free motion can take a lot of time and a lot of thread, but for this, definitely worth it. I have my quilting gloves. This really helps you move the quilt along without killing your hands. Okay, I finished. I stopped filming when I got to the binding because I was just tired of filming. But I did a scrappy binding. Does it look cute? I did all the like pinks and yellows and oranges. Whoops, for the binding. And the back is so soft and cuddly. I need to put it in the wash so it gets all cozy. But before I show you the whole thing, don't forget to go buy your copy of Curvy Improv. I just got the whole box of them back from the printer. The last 2 times I've done this with this book and this one, they sold out much quicker than I thought they would. So I did order more this time, but don't wait if you want to get one. I'm going to put the link to Curvy Improv, the first part of the description below. Right, so let me show you. It looks so good. So cute, right? Not be happier with how this turned out. In the dead of winter, I think it's like 8 degrees outside right now. That's why I have a beanie on, because I had to go out earlier and now I have hat hair. So anyway, this quilt feels very, very summery. The top section, I did the free motion scallops. And then in the bottom section with the fish, I did free motion, and the circles took a lot more time and a lot more thread. I am going to put all the tutorials that I talked about here. I have a tutorial for free motion quilting. I have a tutorial for making the quilt sandwich on the table, not on the floor. And I have a binding tutorial. I've been told it's genius. That's why the thumbnail says some say it's genius because it is super easy to join the ends without having to do any like math, you know? And yeah, so I have all those tutorials. I'm gonna link those below. I really hope you've enjoyed this and that you're inspired to make something with Curvy Improv. This quilt is probably going to be entered into the Kentucky State Fair because it was such a fun experience the last time. So for now, goodbye, and I'll see y'all soon.